What's going on, everybody? Christian Hernandez here from Sports Video Group. Another edition of our SVG Sports Tech On Demand. We're here to talk about all the news and all the notes and announcements from this spring season. I have the pleasure to speak with Mike Ruddell. He's the Global Director of Business Development for Ncam. Mike, how you doing, sir? And how is your 2021 going so far?
Yeah, I'm great, thank Christian. And thanks for having me here. 2021, well, it's a year like no other, apart from the last one. But yeah, let's hope things are headed in the right direction now.
I agree with that sentiment. Let's hopefully that we're on the uptick upwards, on and upwards, and we'll see where we go in 2021. But we're here to talk about Ncam's involvement over the past year. The first question I want to ask you, Mike, how has the pandemic impacted business for Ncam? And then you can talk about a little bit about how you've seen changes in the way that augmented reality has been produced, because that's what augmented reality, you guys are really immersed in that.
Sure. So yeah, I think like everyone, in the past year, this time last year when the kind of pandemic hit, we were hit like everyone else. Live sports was kind of pretty much cancelled. Projects that were on our radar just stopped. Many of those have come back. Some of them have not come back and are probably never gonna happen. So that was obviously a really, really big impact on us. But looking out into the wider industry, we saw kind of pretty immediately that a lot of those kind of technology trends, the emerging things that had been kind of slowly making progress over the years. So, for example, the move towards more remote production or at-home production, as you guys over in the States would call it, and also the move towards XR, AR, virtual production on LED stages. Those things were kind of progressing, have been for a number of years, but those kind of suddenly flipped from being the kind of, you'd have to justify the cost benefit of doing those things. All of a sudden they became, the urgent way of working. Remote production was no longer an option, which was a kind of, will it save us a bit of cash? Will it help a little bit with our kind of carbon footprint? All of a sudden that's the only way we're going to get sports content to air. So that kind of, it was great to see that across the industry, and so many kind of clever people came up with really, really kind of fantastic solutions to those problems.
Yeah, there's not much of a gray area anymore. Like you said, if you wanted to get something done, it had to be done remotely in that fashion, just to make sure that everyone was staying safe because of the pandemic, right? So you mentioned products that were kind of, the timing was a bit skewed because you had to do it, I guess, right when the pandemic hit. And one of those products was the MK2. Talk to me a little bit about the product, and has that impacted the launch of that product, the pandemic? Has it affected it at all?
Yeah, so kind of the first couple of months of 2020, we were really excited that the new Ncam MK2 product was going to come along, supersede the product that we've had on the market since 2012. We were planning for a huge release at NAB in April, and then obviously the pandemic happened, and kind of all of that changed. And our product launch was impacted, but not really in the way you might think, and this was quite surprising. So, the biggest changes, I won't get hugely into the detail of the product now, but the biggest changes for us were around simplifying the process, making it more accessible, making it more cost effective, kind of really kind of democratizing, there's the strapline, democratizing AR production. And what we really kind of found that, with the simplification, with the new product itself being much, much smaller, lighter, easy to operate at a much lower price point, we found that, the product launch happened. And then alongside the backdrop of the pandemic, there was all of a sudden a lot of really, really clever guys with a lot of time on their hands sitting at home who've kind of heard about virtual production. So the interest for us kind of just absolutely kind of really, really went through the roof, which was fantastic. It's always good to have kind of more sales inquiries than you can cope with. But I guess the flip side of that, and this is something that we're still learning, is not necessarily in the broadcast vertical, but definitely in kind of the film and commercials vertical that we also operate in. It meant that we were talking with people from a much, much lower tier. So, people who haven't got the expertise of international production and broadcast. And we found that those guys do require kind of a lot more support. It's not like me kind of, selling a system into a tier one broadcaster who's been using camera tracking for years. He knows what he's doing. In some cases, we were literally kind of explaining to some of the new customers which end of the camera is which.
That's a funny story. I guess because it shows the breadth of clients that you have, because you mentioned the tier ones and the lower tiers. So the learning points and kind of getting them comfortable with the equipment and the technologies, I'm sure it was an interesting experience for you. But as we move forward, we're in a way better spot than we were in March 2020 and the following months after that. We have a lot more answers. Things are, as I said, on the up. But in terms of technology and operations, Mike, where do you see us going from here, I guess you can say?
Yeah, I guess, well, generally the tech trends that have come along over the past year, I don't see them going away anytime soon. You know, the remote production piece, at home production, that piece has been cracked now. You know, everything from the simplest lower tier basketball match right up to you know, the huge Olympic operations, for example. You know, the technology there has been proven. It will continue to evolve. I think the biggest change is going to be in operations. You know, the operational model of operating remotely, that is now kind of something that's really helping, you know, broadcasters kind of, as well as, you know, they have to get the content to air. They can now do that in a much more efficient, a much less kind of carbon footprint heavy way. And I kind of think that, you know, that you know, there will be more on-site production. You know, that's going to happen. But remote has now been kind of completely proven. Something that definitely has changed with Ncam is obviously over the last year we've been doing maybe 99% of our kind of installations, training, support remotely on Zoom calls like this. Now, that's a really good thing for us because obviously, you know, with the price point of the product now being far lower, justifying flying someone across to the US or halfway around the world to do a training session, that kind of really, you know, the economics of that doesn't stack up. We've proven remote support works. That's kind of fantastic to us. The other thing that I guess that we've kind of learned through all of this is that the kind of huge importance, and it's really ramped up the importance of our global partner network. You know, our technology partners, our resellers, our rental partners around the world. Those guys have always done a great job for us, but over the past year, their role has, you know, absolutely been crucial. So a real kind of priority and focus for us over the next year is working with that network, you know, kind of seeing what regions, what countries we have gaps in, giving those guys support and making sure they're all equipped, fully trained on the new product. But I think the other kind of thing is again, the how critical kind of networks and partnerships and contacts are, and that's why obviously, you know, through relationships like the kind of the deal we have with you guys at SVG, that's really important to us, and it kind of, you know, continues to be more important because as great as it is to kind of, you know, talk to people on Zoom and on phone all the time, the networking side of it, and hopefully one day face-to-face networking again, that is something that really kind of keeps the business alive for us, not only, you know, in terms of talking with people, finding out where the trends are going, but listening to our customers and saying, what are the problems you've got? Where do you want to be tomorrow? And what do we need to do as a supplier to get you from here to where you need to be?
Right. Communication and those partnerships are, I guess you could say, everything, because without those, there wouldn't be improvements. There wouldn't be the networking, like you said. The pandemic is giving a lot of changes, both good and bad, but we'll see how those changes lie in the next couple of months. But for now, Mike, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate catching up with you and getting to talk. And hopefully, when it's safe enough to do so, we can see each other in person and say hello.
Definitely, Christian. Thanks very much. Good to see you.